can't see, but she is here recording the session and letting everybody join in. So thank you, Suzanne, for helping us out to get this started. And we'll also have time, we hope to have time at the end for questions at the end of the presentation. So importantly, we'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners, Casey's Aboriginal communities and their rich culture, and pay respect to their elders, past, present and future. We acknowledge Aboriginal people as Australia's first peoples and as the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we work and live. And we have this beautiful artwork by Joy Sellers, a senior elder in the Casey community. So tonight's session is an opportunity to learn about the Community Grants Program, which opens next Monday for applications, and it closes at 5 p.m. sharp on Friday, the 26th of April. We'll talk about what you can apply for and how to submit a fantastic application so you can get funding. To start with, we will provide you with details of the grant guidelines, what you can apply for, importantly, what you can't apply for, and the criteria that our panels assess applications against. We'll also run through how to log on to Smarty Grants, the online grants management system, and show you the basics of completing the online application form. And thanks everyone for turning off your cameras as you're coming in. I'll just explain to those that have just joined us that we're doing that because we're recording the session so we can share it with people who haven't been able to make it tonight. And we'll also share all these slides with you. So you don't need to take notes and you'll have all the links as well. So let's get started. The Community Grants Program is Council's most popular grants program. Last year, we received over 160 applications, so it was a lot of work and fantastic projects. But we're just letting you know that so you know how it is a competitive process. So you might have a good project, but you do need to compete against other grant applications and other projects. The good news is that we have about a 75% success rate of applications receiving funding. So that's quite good compared to other grant programs. And Chris is nodding there in agreement because she knows that's how true that is. It's an annual funding program for community groups that operate in Casey or deliver activities in Casey for Casey residents. And it supports projects that benefit residents and helps support local groups working in the community. Okay, we're just getting some more people joining. I'll just reiterate that we are recording the session and we're asking people to keep themselves muted and their cameras turned off. So continuing on, community grants are to support activities that do a range of things. And these are all listed in the online guidelines and you may have already read these, but I'll just run through them quickly. We're looking at supporting activities that are innovative and of high quality, that promote a sense of community, resilience and social inclusion. Increase opportunities for community participation and education, promote sustainable living practices, help residents to be healthy, active and engaged, are locally led and have community support, celebrate diversity and cultural heritage, enable the community to benefit from digital technology and support council plans and strategic objectives. So you can see that that is a list of very high ideals that we're funding projects here for in Casey, which is just fantastic. It's a really wonderful grant program. So hopefully you have a project in mind that helps to achieve one or more of these fantastic priorities. Community groups can apply for between $1,000 and up to $5,000 for a project. You can only submit one application per group, and groups can apply in future years for the same or a different project. However, you can't be guaranteed funding. You still have to compete each year. Check that project costs are eligible and able to be supported under the program, and we'll detail those a bit later. And be aware that you may not be granted the full amount you request, and some groups are offered partial funding instead. And there's a question about that on your application form. So eligibility, importantly, who can apply? Your group must be a not-for-profit, noting that most not-for-profit groups are actually incorporated associations. Your group must be a legal entity. This is a formal legal structure, such as an incorporated association. This is not just for a group of people, and you must have a bank account in the group's name. If you don't have these, your application won't even get to the panel because it will be ineligible. If you're not incorporated, you may well be able to work with another organisation to apply for the grant on your behalf, and this is called an auspice. The auspice will receive the funds on your behalf and has an obligation to ensure the grant is expended in line with the grant conditions. Auspice organisations must be aware of and support the grant application. You can't just write down the name of an organisation without talking to them, and you'll need to get a letter of support or an email from them to include in your application as evidence that this organisation is happy to do that for your group. Your group should be based in Casey and or delivering the project in Casey to benefit Casey residents. Applicants or auspice organisations must have public liability insurance for their project that covers staff, group members and the general public. You will need to provide a certificate of currency for your public liability as part of your application. That's not a tax invoice. We don't know whether you've paid your invoice. It is the certificate of currency. In some circumstances, if you're booking a council facility, you can pay an additional fee for public liability, and you will need to provide evidence of this. This is on a per hire basis and shouldn't be a long-term solution for your group for public liability. It's just that important these days. A list of who cannot apply is included in the guidelines online and includes, just as a short summary here tonight, businesses, sole traders, individuals, political groups, schools, council managed kindergartens. All of those types of organisations and individuals cannot apply for this grant. Although, of course, there is an exception. Schools that are not for profit, such as language schools, are the exception to that rule. And now I'm going to hand over to the lovely Chris to continue the presentation.
That's sweet of you. Thank you everyone for coming. I can see we've got 13 people who've joined us tonight. There might be more coming in, but if not, we're recording this session and we can send out a copy of this to them later on. But I really wanted to talk about how the grant submissions are actually assessed, and all of the criteria is in the guidelines, which you may have had a chance to read already on the Casey website. But we're just going to break this down, and I want to walk you through the 4 different criteria that your applications will be considered against. And just for context, all of the eligible applications that are received from this grant round are assessed by a panel of Casey residents. So the panel is made up of 6 to 7 people, different ages, different backgrounds, genders, all who live across different parts of Casey, and they've applied and shown interest in being part of an assessment panel. The assessors will read each of the submissions and consider how well each of the applications that they read meet each of these 4 criteria. So let's just spend a little time on each of them. The first criteria, how well the program or event fits in with the purpose of the grant. So this first criteria refers to Council's priorities that Elizabeth mentioned previously. So like projects that increase community participation, or sustainability projects, cultural celebrations, or active living projects. For this criteria, you'll need to clearly explain what you're trying to achieve and how it meets one of Council's priorities. The second criteria is asking how well your project shows that there is a need in the community for your project. So you can use anecdotal or statistical evidence or a combination of both, but you need to show evidence of need for your project. And it's important to show the link between how people will benefit from your project and what you're going to deliver. So will people feel more included? Will people be upskilled in a particular area? Will they feel more safe? It's important to have a think about how you're going to address that criteria. The third criteria is about how many people your program or event is involving. How many people are attending, how many people come along, how many people are organising it, and which other organisations in KC will be involved in it too. You might not be doing this all on your own. There might be other groups of interest that are helping you achieve this project. So having a big number of people is not necessarily better. What we're looking for is to see the level of engagement in people, of KC people, in all of these different ways that are going to support your project. And we want to feel what people are going to be doing and what they're going to feel like they're getting out of involvement in your project. So the fourth criteria is about the ability of your group or organisation to deliver the project that you're proposing. So for this criteria, you'll need to provide information about the structure of your group, how many members you might have, about any previous experience you've had delivering a project like this or other projects, and how you plan on evaluating the project to see if you actually are going to achieve what you set out to do. How will you know if you've achieved that? Your budget proposal as well can show assessors how well you've planned for your particular project. They're the 4 different assessment criteria that our community panel will be considering. We also have categories for funding. If you've read the guidelines, you'll see that we've broken it up into arts and culture, diversity and harmony, health, wellbeing and equity, and environmental sustainability. We've put them in these different categories really to assist the assessors and the panel so that they can compare different applications. And there's descriptions you'll see in the guidelines for each of the categories. Now, I appreciate some of your project ideas might fall across multiple of these categories. I just need you to have a think about the primary one or the one that fits the most. And that's the category that you can choose when you're completing the application form. You'll note that there's no separate category for events or community events. You might be delivering an event as part of your project idea, totally fine. But you'll need to decide what the aim of the event is and then choose a category that that event would fit under. What are we looking for? So there's lots of types of programs that we're looking to support. Community cultural events in KC that are open to all residents and celebrate diversity and inclusion. We're looking for programs that offer opportunities for community connection and social inclusion. We're looking for programs that encourage people to get physically active and out and about. We're looking for programs that respond to specific health and wellbeing issues that might face your community or different parts of KC. So things like mental health or family violence, gender inequality. If there's something specific to your group, we're interested in learning what that program might look like to support their health and wellbeing. Programs that support residents across KC to reduce waste, to upcycle, to educate the broader community about living more sustainably, really exciting to read about, and initiatives that help people meet their digital needs. It's important to make sure that all the people across KC are able to build their digital skills. It comes easier for some than others, and it's really important that others or people who are struggling or need support around being part of the digital world these days are supported to do that. And so that's some ideas around what we are looking for. And I just wanted to show you here, there's some examples of projects that we've previously funded through this grant round. So you can read through this, and you can also go to the link on screen. You'll be able to access that link when we share these slides with you after tonight's session. Or you can type in that URL, but you'll be able to see previous grant recipients, who they are and the type of projects that they've delivered before across Casey. Get in touch with them, find out how their programs worked, what they offered, what worked, what didn't, if there's any overlap with your current project ideas. I think it's really exciting to be able to get in touch with people with experience in this space as well. So have a think about that, but it might give you some project ideas by looking through those lists. But there are some things that won't be funded. I think Elizabeth mentioned it earlier that we won't be accepting more than one application from your group. So you might have multiple really great project ideas, which is fabulous, but you need to put your best foot forward for this funding round. You can apply again next year for a different idea or the same idea, but we'll only accept one application from your group. Events held outside of the City of Casey won't be funded. We're here to support City of Casey residents. Capital works projects, celebrations for individuals won't be funded. Fundraising activities, programs that only advocate religion or faith. Funding that's been approved under another grant program or event in the same financial year. Activities that have already happened. So if you've already delivered it, you can't apply for funding for it. And obviously, we're looking to fund activities that are going to happen within the 24-25 financial year. If you're not sure about where your project idea might sit within any of this, please just give us a call or an email, and we can make sure that your project does align with what we're looking to fund through this program. But I do want to talk about projects. I want to talk about getting started with project planning. And you might already have a project idea, and that's why you're here tonight. You might think it's got a really good alignment with what Casey would be interested in funding. But planning out your project well is really important, and I just wanted to spend one slide talking about that because it's important to do before you start completing your grant application or any grant application form. So if you're having trouble getting started with project planning, on the top of this slide, you'll get the link when we send through the slide pack. But there's a really quick and easy to watch YouTube. I think it goes for 3 minutes, the video, but it's a really good explainer about all the different things to think about to make sure you don't get caught off guard and that your project is likely to be a success in the end. But in short, it's important to take the time, and do it now, to consider your project's why, what, who, how, when, all of the logistics around it. How much is it going to cost? So getting started with project planning is about what is the need in your community. So you might have a good idea, but does your community need it? And what is the event, activity or program that might help address this need? How might we fix a problem or address a need in your community? You need to be really clear and write down some words around who the project's for and really describe them in detail so you know exactly what you need to deliver to who and how would you do the project, what's involved, main steps. Really important, even at a high level, to write these things down to start. And really, once you start writing a sentence for each of these dot points, you're well on your way to a really good project plan. So when and where will your project take place? Really important to make sure if you're looking for a particular venue or a site, you need to make sure that that's available and suitable for what you're trying to deliver. And how much will it actually cost for the participant? We're looking for opportunities in Casey that are low cost or minimal cost or no cost for communities so they can all equally be involved. But you also might, and we'll cover this later in the budget discussion, around being able to charge per head for participation, but it's important to know what you're looking for in terms of costs that the participants are going to incur. And then just be really comfortable that your overall budget looks real and reasonable and doable for your group. We're going to talk more about budget, which I know is one of Elizabeth's most favourite things. So I'm going to hand it back to Elizabeth.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, now that your project is so beautifully scoped out with that lovely advice from Chris about how you can do that, you can work out the budget. So carefully consider what the project costs are and include enough detail in your budget so it is clear what the cost is for. I'm just going to let someone else in who's coming in a bit late. Include all costs and all income for the project, not just the grant component. Be realistic with your costs. Don't inflate them or underestimate expenses. You would be amazed at our panel members, our community panel members, people like you and me that are on the panel who can pick up an inflated cost or will note, that catering is not going to, it is really too expensive and it could be done for a lot less money. When I say people like you and me, Chris and I just facilitate the grant process. We are not making assessments of the grant. So it's actually just people like you that are picking up these things in the budget. You also don't want a situation where you need to undertake additional fundraising because you haven't included all your costs. So really important to put some careful thought into the budget. And you cannot use grant funds for ineligible expenses. And we're going to look at what those are. Now, these are listed in the guidelines online, but we're just going to go through them quickly. So ineligible expenses include ongoing staffing costs, that is wages for project specific, although wages for project specific staff are okay. Say, for example, a workshop facilitator for a specific project, but your ongoing regular staff are not able to be included in the budget. Ongoing operational costs such as utilities, general stationery, rent, or insurance are not eligible costs. Restaurant bills, alcohol and petrol costs. Fundraising activities is not an eligible cost, and neither are prizes, trophies, gifts, honorariums, awards or donations. So you can see the kind of general theme here. Even though there's a lot in this list, it must be directly related to the project, including equipment. If it's directly related to the delivery of the project, that's okay. But if it isn't, it is not eligible. Unreasonable or overinflated costs such as catering or production costs, as I said, will be picked up by the community panel members. So we're going to have a look at an example budget because budgets can be difficult for many groups. So let's have a quick look. So you've got your income all on one side because this is in a form. You don't have to make up the form. You just have to fill out this form, and you've got all your expenditure on this side. Under income, this budget could be improved if it detailed where the proposed sponsorship might be from. For example, sponsorship to be confirmed, it could be local business or a philanthropic organisation. This grant is the amount you're applying for, $3,500. Gold coin donations, well, that's clearly what is expected to be paid by the participants. So that's okay. On this side, under hire of community hall, this could easily be improved by saying how many times the hall will be hired and how much per hire. Even if it's just event hire for single event at $400, because we don't really know what that's for. It could even say and includes public liability insurance if you've paid that additional fee. Catering for 200 guests. So that could be improved by saying lunch for 200 people at $7.50 per head. just to give those panel members a really quick, clear understanding of what that very large expense is for. It's actually quite reasonable, $7.50 a head. So they can pick that up very quickly. Cultural dance group. Is it a single performance or multiple performances? And how many dancers are in that group? Possibly you could include that, although you may have included that in your project description. Similar here for the DJ, music and lighting equipment. Now, this one, along with catering, is quite a large expense, so it will support your application if you included a quote for those large expenses, because these two expenses alone are more than 50% of your budget there at $3,000. Decorations and printing and signage is fine, really. The lower the expense, the less detail you need to explain it. And really important to note that your expenditure total is the same as your total expenditure is the same as total income. Now, if this isn't the same, and it often isn't, that means if you've got more here, say $5,000, and your expenditure is only $4,300, well, why are you applying for that much money in the grant? So it just looks like you've got more money than your expenses, and vice versa. If your expenditure is more than your income, it doesn't look like you can deliver the project because you don't have enough income to deliver it. So you can see why these two figures clearly need to be the same, and we see this error a lot. That's why I'm labouring the point, so forgive me for that. Okay, so another quick example, you can see where this could clearly be improved. Venue hire for workshops, 8 weeks. Is that 8 workshops? Is it once a week? Is it 3 times a week? How much is the venue for hire for each hire? Let's see where else. All of the others are quite small amounts. You could put catering. It's always good to put the amount per head and the number of people. This is 25% of the budget, the audio-visual equipment, so it would be good to have a quote there or a bit more information about that. Okay, some very general tips. As we've been saying, or as I've been saying, attach quotes for those really large items that are significant expenses within your budget. Try and secure funding from other sources, as in this budget. We've got a contribution from the organisation, we've got participant fees as well as the grant, and we've got a book sale as well. Make sure your income is the same amount as your expenditure, and make sure that the budget actually represents and matches the project description. So what happens a lot is the panel members read the project and then they go to the budget and there's something different in the budget to what the project has described. For example, it might include a cost for costumes, but there's no performance in the project description. So the panel member is left there wondering, well, why is there a cost for costumes? So make sure that that project budget really represents your project description. Okay, in-kind contributions. For this community grant, you do not need to include them in that table budget. There's a separate question for this, so that makes it a little bit easier. In-kind contributions are things like volunteer hours, pre-purchase stationery, in-house printing, items or products that are donated for the project, or even a venue that you've managed to get at low cost or no cost. Say the local church has provided their hall for your event at no cost, but it's usually hired out at $200. That is actually in kind. So anything that you've been given or that's been donated, you can include that under the in-kind contributions question. So you've written a great project description, you've got a great budget, and you've been successful. What happens next? So Successful and unsuccessful letters will be sent via email in late July. That's the timeline. That's how long it takes for all of those applications to be assessed by our community panel members. And we use the email address you put down as the contact on your application form. So that's a really important email to get right. Payment is then made directly into the group's bank account. So you'll need to make sure that you provide this important information when we request it, because it's not in the application form. And then after you've delivered a fabulous project, you'll be required to complete an acquittal. That is a report about your project, how it was delivered, and how the grant money was spent. So keep your receipts, as you will need to include copies of these to show how the funds were spent in line with your grant application, proposal, and your budget. And of course, things change. We understand that. So if things don't go to plan, that's okay. Just explain it was bad weather, the date changed, there were more or less costs, this is how you covered it. And so explain why it changed and what happened. And we will email you with instructions on how to complete that acquittal form. Okay, so that's all very specific information we've given you about community grants, which is what the session is about. But we're just going to let you know about the Community Service Organisation funding, because it closes on the same date, the 18th of March, and we don't want you to get confused. So, Community Service Organisation funding is targeted to not-for-profit organisations who are accountable to a governing body and, or example, a board, and supports critical services to Casey residents. It is only offered every 3 years. It will not be available again until 2027. Grants are for over $5,000 and up to $40,000. Some operational costs are eligible under CSO or Community Service Organisation funding, but not, as we've talked about, under community grants. It requires a much more detailed application and acquittal. With more funding comes more responsibility to council, and it requires a funding and service agreement. However, for outdoor events under either program, it is likely, if you're running an outdoor event as part of your project or as the project, it is likely you will need permits, licenses, and approvals through an event application form. That is a separate form, and our amazing events team will work with you and help you to complete this form to meet these requirements. And they also have a lot of resources available to help you host an outdoor event in Casey. So we just wanted to make sure you're aware of the difference between community grants and community service organisation funding, so you don't log into the wrong one and go, well, that was not what, I heard the other night. So if you are looking at it and you can apply for $40,000, you know you're in community service organisations. Okay, and I'm going to hand over to Chris, and we're actually going to log into Smarty Grants and go through the online application form with you. So Chris is going to just take over the controls of the presentation to get the form up.
Yes, assuming that tech is working with us today, and I'm optimistic but can't be sure. But I appreciate in advance everybody's patience if this goes awry, because we are going a bit out of our presentation. Can you see my screen?
We can. It's looking good, Chris.
Oh, lovely. It worked. Fabulous. Okay, I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview about the application process and the steps that you're going to have to go through to complete that online application form. So it's a bit of a quick overview and can give you some tips as we go. You hopefully may have already found our community grants webpage, which is on the Casey website. To find it, you can come in here, type in community grants. It'll be the first result, I trust. Once you've found it, it's very easy to find. This has all of the information, important information at the top, but all of our guidelines in detail that I really need you to read through twice before completing an application to make sure you've got a really good understanding about what we're looking for and what you're able to deliver. So I just want to be clear that these are the guidelines for this year's program. There's also here information about tonight's information session as well as one. If you want a repeat of today, we're looking to do an in-person information session about this community grant program at Lynbrook Community Centre on next Wednesday. So if you're interested in doing it in the flesh, come along and we can answer more questions for you. But I really want to just particularly here to flag that we've got a portal access button to find your application here or to find the application form. At the moment, it's in preview mode because the round has not opened. You can't start completing your application forms until 9 o'clock on Monday morning. So at the moment, you can pop in here and view the application form, but I just wanted to give you a bit of a sneak peek, again, assuming my tech holds out, about how to complete the application form. So once you've, once you've gone here to access the application form, it will take you into Smarty Grants where you'll need to log in. I'm not going to log out there. You'll need a password and your own Smarty Grants account. I'm not sure how many people are online here who already have a Casey Smarty Grants account, but if you don't, it's quite easy to complete. You'll need an email that your group can be contacted by and obviously a password. Once you've created an account, you'll be coming here. I've labeled this as the test community grants, but this is actually the real life application form. It's just not available for you until Monday morning. So I just wanted to walk you just very briefly through what it's like to complete a submission. Once you
Sorry to interrupt, Chris. We've just had some people join late. So we're just asking everyone to turn their cameras off because we are recording the session. If you're having trouble seeing the screen, it might be worth logging out and logging back in again. Is there anyone else? Can you just raise your hand if you're having trouble seeing the screen? I think most people are okay. So for the person who is having trouble seeing the screen, if you could log out, I think it's Crystal Lee, if you can log out and log back in again. And for Lily Sue, would you mind turning your camera off because we are recording? I'm not sure.
I'll keep moving ahead, okay. But let me know if you can't, if other people are having trouble seeing the screen. I assume this will come through in the recording anyway. Okay, I'm just going to keep moving ahead, but this is obviously it'll give, this is, as I mentioned, this is a test form, but you, on your first screen, you will receive your own submission number that's relevant to your application. You can write it down, but you'll also get an email confirming your application number. So that's up to you. You hit the next button, and this is the navigation up the top. It's important to save progress every now and then, though I do find it quite reliable. Save and close when you're halfway through the form or you've filled out a bit and you're going to come back later. But to navigate, you can hit next page to go through the 7 pages of this application form, or, as is my favourite way, there's a navigation on the side here. It's kind of like the chapters in a book. So I like navigating this way. Each number here is a page, so you can click on these and move through the pages. But I just wanted to really quickly go through. Page 1 is asking for some organisation details. We start very high level around your organisation name, address, and the contact person who's going to be responsible for this application, or our main contact, as well as the name of somebody else in your organisation who is endorsing and supporting this application. So that's page 1 of the form. Page 2, we ask for more organisation information, and this is specific to things like your legal status, your ABN if you have one. If you don't have an ABN, it will prompt you to complete a statement by supplier form as we go through. And insurance, it'll also prompt you to attach your current certificate of currency for your public liability insurance. So that's the organisation information it's collecting on page 2. And would you believe page 3 is also about organisation information, but this is getting into the detail. This is about, tell us about your organisation and what is it that you do? What activities do you normally deliver? What year were you established? Tell us a lot about yourself. You have up to 200 words. How many members are in your organisation and how many of your members live in the city of Casey? It can be a guesstimate. You might not have that data on hand, but you might think it's about 80%. You might think it's only 20. It's just to help the panel have an understanding about how many of your members actually live in the boundaries of the city of Casey. So that's page 3. That's a couple of pages asking all about your organisation information. The page 4, I'm going to click over here, is all around your project idea or your proposal. We call it program or event details, but call it what you will. We want to know about your project proposal. We want to know what category it fits in, and we talked a bit about that before. We ask a lot of information here about describing your project, start and end dates, how you plan on promoting it. Then we have some questions under each criteria. I think there's 2, maybe 3 under each of the criteria. Some of them are tick box, some of them are drop list. You can go through, spend some time, particularly making sure that it's telling the right story about your project and all of the need that is in the community and all of the amazing things that your project idea is going to deliver. We've got examples here of different bits of text in the form. Read all the text in the form because there's tips or examples about how to fill in each of these criteria responses. Page 5 is about the budget. It gets its whole own page. It's set up very much like the slides that Elizabeth was walking through, which is specific to income description, expenditure description, and amounts. And these fields here, they're automatically calculating. You don't need to add up your total amounts, but it's really important that the income minus expenditure is a 0 net position there. So we just want that to be a 0 once you have filled out all of those fields. Just to prompt your memory, we've put an example very similar to one that we covered tonight about how to write out your expenditure description and the dollars that you might be assigning to it. And as part of the budget discussion here or your application, it's a bit around in-kind contributions and partial funding. So all of this page is specific to your budget. Page 6 is only specific to people, only relevant to people who are delivering a community event that might be outdoors. So it might be a different cultural event, you might be running a sports event. This page is especially for you because as Elizabeth mentioned, there might be different permits that you might need to safely deliver that event. And there is a contact number in here for the City of Casey's events unit. There's also this email address. They're very responsive on emails. They've got amazing resources and ideas about how you can deliver really great community events. That's page 6. Doesn't apply to everybody, but this one does apply to everybody. It's the final page. So it's just the declaration. Everything is true and correct, but I want you to read that clearly as well. Once you've completed all of the 7 pages, you'll move ahead to this review and submit section. Now, part of the beauty of Smarty Grants is that it makes sure that applicants complete all of the required fields. If you haven't completed a required field, it will mark it here in red. All of the different ones. As you know, I didn't complete any of the fields. So it's asking me to go back and add all the information that I've missed. I expect yours won't look like this, but you might have missed 1 or 2 of the fields, which is fine. It will prompt you here and you can go to the page to fix that. Once you've resolved all of those red asterisks, this button, the submit button up here on the right will be activated and you'll be able to submit your form. So that's seven-page application. How to access it via the Community Grants website at the City of Casey. And I think I'm going to leave that there for my tech demo before things go wrong.
Fantastic.
I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, Chris. Okay,
Hello.
can I just ask those people who have their cameras on to turn their cameras off and mute their mics as we are recording the session. And I am just going to go back to our PowerPoint presentation. Bear with me a minute. Here we go.
Love the tech.
It's just a bit slow.
It's okay.
Okay, we're nearly finished. So thank you so much for your patience. We just also wanted to let you know about the City of Casey's Community Leadership Program, which is back, and expressions of interest are now open. This free program is for new and existing community leaders aged 18 years and over who want to enhance their leadership skills, develop communication skills, learn about council, understand governance and government, and create networks and, importantly, contribute to Casey's future. Applications opened on last Monday, the 11th of March, and are due Friday, the 19th of April. And for more information, you can go to this website, conversations.casey.vic.gov.au/CLP. So that's obviously going to be in the slides when we send out the slide pack for you. So just wanted to promote that because that's a lot of free training for our community members. And we're coming to the last slide. So, okay, some top tips and how to contact us, importantly, if your questions don't get answered tonight or you think of questions later on. So some top tips: create a small team to work on the submission together. It's really quite a big process. So yeah, don't do it on your own. Include someone to write the application, someone who's good at writing, someone who's good at finances and budgets, someone to get letters of support where you need it or quotes. Ask for help. It really should be a team effort from your group. Keep your applications clear and concise. Help assessors to understand the need for your project and the impact your project will make and how it will benefit Casey residents. Proofread it, get someone else to proofread it, and get them to read it and assess it, even give it a score out of 10 for each of those criteria. So, because that's how the panel does it. So that's how you'll pick up any errors or omissions in your application. The budget, as we've said, include all your costs and make sure it adds up. And submit the grant on time. Late applications will not be accepted. It's really important that we don't accept late applications, and this is about best practice, fairness and transparency in grants management. So we cannot accept a late application because that's the only way we can all be fair to other community members and other community groups. We actually are running a grant writing skills workshop on Tuesday, the 26th of March, which runs for 2 hours. You've done an hour tonight, which is focused on community grants. This is 2 hours and has a bit more interactivity, a lot more interactivity actually than we've had tonight. And it's at Bunjil Place. So you can register for that event and find out about other free training at this email, volunteermatcher@casey.vic.gov.au. So that's how you register for that. And if you want to find out about other training, it's on Casey's website, casey.vic.gov.au/community-training. And when you get the slides, you can actually just click on the link and it will take you to that page on the Casey website. And for information about other grant programs, sign up to the Grants Update e-news, and there's a link here to sign up for that. And that's grants across a whole, or grant programs from a whole range of organisations and government bodies. And we put together that grant newsletter, and a lot of people find that very helpful. And then lastly, if you would like to contact either myself or Chris and other members in our team leader, you can do that by emailing communitygrants@casey.vic.gov.au or phoning us on the Casey number and asking to speak to one of the grants team, 9705 5200, with any of your questions, or as you're writing your application, if you need some advice or you're not sure how to finalise an answer, give us a call and we can talk you through it. Best to do that earlier than later, because as it gets closer to the grants closing, we are just swamped with calls and you may not get through, and we're also swamped with emails. And what we will also do is, if we see a submission come in, you submit it early and we can see that you haven't included your public liability or you haven't given us enough detail in the budget. If you get it in early enough, we will ring you and explain that will help improve your chances. So yeah, do it early. Yeah, that's probably the best advice we can give you, as well as getting someone to proofread it. Now, we are nearly finished, so we are going to finish on time, but we can take a few questions. So you can either put them in the chat or raise your hand and we can answer those questions. And oh, here we go. Roshan, you've got a question. If you'd like to unmute yourself, ask away.
Sure. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. My question is regarding the acquittal. We've received grant now for this financial year, and we have our last event probably towards the end of April. Do we need to acquit that before we apply for next year's grant?
No, you don't, Roshan. And I did reply to your email, but maybe you didn't see it. So that acquittal is not due until the 30th of June. So you don't need to worry about that.
Oh, good. Because I thought, we were told that we need to acquit this if we want to apply for next year, but that's not the case, right?
So the case is you can't have any overdue acquittals and be funded another grant. You just need to make sure your grant is acquitted by the due date. You don't have to acquit every single grant before you apply for another one. You just need to make sure your acquittal is done by the due date, because those timelines don't always work out to have them all acquitted before your next application.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, that's the burning question I had, and you've answered it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, really good question. Thank you, Roshan. Okay, Sanaki, if I've pronounced your name right, would you like to ask your question? I think you might be on mute.
Mute, I think.
All right, can you hear me now?
Hello? I can hear you, but very faintly, Sanak.
Okay, I think I will talk to you by phone and ask the question.
Oh, sorry, I can't hear you very well, but is it something that we can discuss, or you could send us an email?
Yes, I will do that. I will send an email.
That would be great. Thank you. Thank you. No problem.
I'm sorry we couldn't hear you, Sanaki.
Yeah, that was very faint.
Does anyone else have a question?
Is that? No.
And we don't have any questions in the chat?
No, not that I can see. it all looks good, I think. But that means that we've provided a whole lot of great information. But it also, I hope, means that you're happy with contacting us via email or phone. We really do like helping you and answering all the questions to make sure you get the best possible opportunity to be successful in this. No.
Well,
No.
once again, thank you everybody for coming. And you've got our email and phone number there, and we will be sending these slides out to everybody that registered. So you'll get them by the end of the week or early next week. Yeah, hopefully by the end of the week. So you'll have those, and Community Grants opens on the 18th of March, and we wish you the best of luck with your submissions if you decide to submit. So once again, thank you very much for coming, and we might end the session a couple of minutes early.
Lovely. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope this has been helpful.
Thanks, Kim. Getting a few thank yous in the chat. Thanks very much.
Oh, that's great.
Thanks, Casey Warriors. Thanks, Brenda.
Thanks, Brenda, too. Oh, that's lovely.
Thanks, Emily, Cassandra.
Wonderful. Have a great night, everyone. But please get in touch if you need us, if we can help.
Please get in touch and we can work through your questions. Beautiful. Okay, we're going to sign off. Thank you. Good night, everybody. Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.